from a text by James and Eisenman has drawn attention to its Qumranic style, language, and imagery. It contains James and accusation whose significance will become apparent shortly. An accusation to the effect that you murdered the righteous or just man. Again, however, no personal information is vouchsafed. Such is James' role in Scripture proper, but if one looks further afield, a portrait of James does begin to emerge. This is the research which Eisenman has been pursuing over the last few years. One source of information he has emphasized is an anonymous text of the early church, the so-called Recognitions of Clement, which surfaced very early in the 3rd century. According to this document, James is preaching in the temple when an unnamed enemy, accompanied by an entourage of followers, bursts in. The enemy taunts James' listeners and drowns out his words with noise, then proceeds to inflame the crowd with revilings and abuse, and like a madman to excite everyone to murder, saying, "What do ye? Why do ye hesitate? O sluggish and inert, why do we not lay hands upon them, and pull all these fellows to pieces?" The enemy does not confine himself to a verbal assault. Seizing a brand of wood, he begins to flail about with it at the assembled worshippers, and his entourage follow suit. A full-scale riot ensues. Much blood is shed. There is a confused flight, in the midst of which that enemy attacked James and threw him headlong from the top of the steps, and supposing him to be dead, he cared not to inflict further violence upon him. James, however, is not dead. According to the recognitions, his supporters carry him back to his house in Jerusalem. The next morning before dawn, the injured man and his supporters flee the city, making their way to Jericho, where they remain for some time, presumably while James convalesces. For Eisenman, this attack on James is pivotal. He notes the parallels between it and the attack on Stephen as recounted in Acts. He suggests that Stephen may be an invented figure to disguise the fact that the attack, as Acts could not possibly have admitted, was really directed at James, and he points out that Jericho, where James flees for refuge, is only a few miles from Qumran. What is more, he argues the flight to Jericho has a ring of historical truth to it. It is the kind of incidental detail that is unlikely to have been fabricated and interpolated, because it serves no particular purpose. As for the enemy, there would seem to be little doubt about his identity. The Recognitions of Clement concludes,